tonality in those situations. When we really start to get tripped up is when we're talking to women or higher-ups at work, right? People who hold a position of power that we perceive. And in those moments, we lack security in ourselves and maybe in our thoughts and end up raising our tonality needlessly. And I know from personal experience that was one of my downfalls in my lab position in biology, was I put so much emphasis on my higher-ups and my boss, especially because he was a world-renowned scientist, that I didn't speak with any sort of confidence in my voice. Even though I was presenting the same results as other people, my voice lacked the confidence that was really compelling and engaging him. And I remember at times even noticing him nodding out in some of my lab meetings because of it. So it is really important. This is not only for obviously getting the girl, but this is important for communicating and engaging in a way that is meaningful in life. Absolutely.
I mean, appropriate volume conveys confidence and dominance, but it's not the same thing as energy and animation. You know, a lot of guys are like, I'm going to go to the bar and be spazzy and weird. And I know that's a mean word in the UK, but in the US it's fine. You're just going to be like a super goofy, and that's fine if that's your personality. But if you're turning into some kind of coked out clown when you go out, that's not the same thing as having appropriate volume to convey what you want to convey. A lot of people are too soft. They get tuned out. If you've got a TV in a sports bar and you can't quite hear it, you've got to strain to hear it. It doesn't make it easy, and people are lazy, especially if you have no value. You're approaching a girl, for the first time, maybe you don't have the social value set up that you would want. She's not necessarily going to struggle to hear you. She might be polite in the beginning, but then she's just going to give up, especially if you're in a loud environment. That is not going to help you engage. Again, if they can't hear you, you can't engage them. Now, on the other hand, if you're too loud, you get tuned out because you're trying hard and you're being needy, and that shows a lack of confidence. And everybody's seen that obnoxious guy or girl who is laughing loud and being loud in the bar or the restaurant. And everyone thinks it's annoying because it's so clear that that person just wants attention.
Exactly.
It grates on you, and you're the most annoying person in the whole venue. It's obnoxious.
Now, let's talk about developing the perfect tonality, because I know, Jordan, you spent a lot of time working on this, developing the radio voice.
Yeah, there's something that I call there's no technical term for it as far as I know, but there's something called the necklace of tension, and essentially it's your neck, your traps, which are the muscles between your neck and your shoulders, and a little bit of your upper back, which is essentially the same thing as your traps, your trapezius. And you've got to relax this. You've got to force your shoulders to relax. It can be tough. Even things like meditation will help with this. A lot of people carry their stress in their shoulders. They carry their stress in their traps and their neck. That's a problem for a lot of us that work at computers and things like that all day. And the problem is that negatively affects your vocal tonality. So you've really got to force that to relax. And that'll help you move your voice into your chest. And this will allow you to stay really, really loud, but also very, very relaxed. Because as we know, one of our core concepts at The Art of Charm is that the mind follows the body. So you'll stay relaxed, but you will be powerful. So it's possible to be really, really loud without shouting, without grating on your throat. And shouting essentially is trying hard, which is needy. And if you've ever come back from a bar or a club and you felt like your throat was on fire the next day, it's probably because your voice was in the wrong place.
Yeah, and using your chest allows more air to pass over your vocal cords, which is going to give you the volume necessary to speak. A lot of times we hold our chest with nervous tension and we don't allow our chest to give us that air, so we strain our throat. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately why you're going to be sipping on honey tea at night.
Absolutely. A lot of guys, the way that we sort of used to teach this in our programs is breathing from your balls, essentially using your diaphragm. And you can find your diaphragm by coughing. That's the muscle that goes crazy when you cough, that forces that air out explosively. And that's why they do the hernia test and have you cough, is because your diaphragm will push downwards. And if you double over in extreme pain when that happens and there's a finger in there, it means you have a hernia. And that's really a very obvious way to find your diaphragm. You want to breathe from there and not from your, like you said, in your throat. And you can use pauses to measure your cadence and reel people in. A half breath is a pause that can be used to get people to pay more attention, to really focus on what you're doing. And you should use pauses instead of filler words. So instead of saying you should use pauses instead of filler words, you should use pauses instead of filler words. It sounds a lot better. You sound a lot more sure of yourself, like you're not afraid someone's going to cut in and jump in and start trampling all over you.
Right. The the biggest thing is owning silence in a confident way. And I know on other podcasts we've talked about the term the vacuum, but it's those people that are confident in silence, that own silence, that actually own the room. And if you feel the need to fill that silence, or if you struggle to find words and find yourself filling silence with filler, you want to dial that back quite a bit and allow yourself to pause, even mentally, right? Sometimes when we get so ahead of ourselves, we trip up over our own thoughts and then we get scrambled mentally. The pauses not only help your tonality, but they also help you mentally to slow down, and less analysis while actually interacting with people is important, right? We talk about the concept of being in the moment. Mm-hmm. And if you can't allow your mind to be in the moment, your mind is racing, and now all of a sudden the words coming out of your mouth are racing. It's going to be very difficult to engage. And we've all tuned that person out who's just talking a mile a minute and just running over anything that you have to say. Mm-hmm. It's not engaging, and it's certainly not going to win her heart.
Absolutely. It's a huge turnoff when someone is constantly interrupting you, and that has to do with how fast you're thinking. And that's right. When people speak slowly and they embrace silence, which isn't necessarily good for talk radio, if you're wondering why we're talking the way we are now. We don't do this when we converse with other people in person. It's a little bit slower. So you can really focus on that. And people who are very much, like you said, own silence, one of the words that people use to describe them is present. That's really common, and that's one of the classic sort of signs of being present is being able to be quiet and slowly talk. Now, sometimes it gets obnoxious, and you're like, dude, spit it out. I want to smack you if you're in a hurry and they're dragging on. There's
also the situation of over-analysis, right, where we get so in our heads. And for a lot of guys who come through the Art of Charm program, we talk about meditation and just slowing down your thoughts in general, not just when you're in the bar environment, but at home, right? Taking time for your mind to slow down, to unwind and unravel instead of constantly operating at 120 miles an hour. It's going to be very important. And we find that a lot of times when we use filler words, we are lacking confidence. It goes hand in hand. So cutting out those filler words is going to speak in a more dominant tone, which is endearing, which is confident.
Exactly. And you touched earlier on ending pitch. An upward tone, that question tone, sounds like you're questioning yourself, or at least what you're saying. That neutral statement tone is great. That downward commanding tone, again, not a yelling type of situation, but that downward tone is great. So if you can use the statement tone even on questions, and you don't have to do this all the time, but try to do so generally as a habit, it comes across as much more dominant. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but in the meantime, guys, listen, it's Jordan here from The Art of Charm. You've heard me talk a lot about taking you to the next level in life, at work, and in your relationships. And you've also thought to yourself, yeah, I want to up my game. I want to become a better man. I want to be a better hustler. I want to be a better person. And my guess is that you've been thinking about it for a really long time. Am I right? So I want to tell you this. Stop thinking. Your chance is now. Do you really need more time, more information, more plans for the future? Or do you want to become that guy today? Because the truth is this. You can be the guy who sits around all day and thinks about becoming better, or you can be the guy who decides that today is the day you're going to become awesome, and I want that for you. Why? Because you are awesome. You just don't know it yet. So join me and thousands of other guys who've taken action in their lives at theartofcharm.com. Now let's get back to it. When I was doing trial stuff, when I was an attorney, people were deciding cases based on how sure. We had a little look inside the jury room during some of our mock trials, and one of the things that people were saying was, well, that guy seemed much more sure of himself. So basically the attorney telling the case or the witness telling the case, if he sounded more sure of the details, those were hands down the cases that won in a lot of cases. And that's a problem, because if your attorney is not really confident, not really sure of themselves, or the witness speaks in a way that's not very sure of themselves because they're nervous on the stand, that can be interpreted as maybe
dishonesty.
They're not sure, maybe they're being dishonest. So basically bad vocal tonality is a crime. But also, yeah, it can put you in jail, which is quite serious. It can put you in jail or cost you a hell of a lot of money if you don't have it down, and the people that are on your side advocating for you don't have this down. There's essentially three voices, right, AJ, that match our interaction map?
Mm-hmm. So as we go through the interaction map, we talk about banter, which is building curiosity in someone else. We then move into building the connection, and then essentially going after what you want. So it's important to realize that in the banter phase, we are going to vary our pitch slightly, but it's going to be dynamic still, right? So it's not in a situation where we're talking all at a high pitch or all at a low pitch or being insincere, But ultimately, we're allowing passion to come through our words because we need to start engaging. And the only way to do so is to add that emotional tonality. So that's what we're going to do with banter, and it conveys that we're being playful, right? A lot of times guys read the banter lines that you can find on the website, the little cheat sheet that we give you guys, and as they're reading the lines, they're like, I don't see this working for me. They're probably reading it on a flat tonality entirely, right? So they don't allow any humor to come through in the words. But when we vary our tonality slightly, she can tell that we're not being sincere in our words, right? We're joking, which is ultimately what we're going for in the banter phase. That's how we're going to connect and hook. Then when we move into the rapport phase, we're going to start to slowly lower our pitch and become more calm, right? Now this is when we want her to know that we are being genuine and we're actually connecting. She's pulling more out of us. If we allow our tonality to be scattered in this phase, again, some of the things, the qualities that you're discussing about yourself might be seen as a joke and might not be taken seriously. So it is important then that we want to be more empathetic and slow things down a little bit more. And then obviously as we move into going for what you want, right, leading, we need the real dominant tonality to come through, and that's where we're going to lower our pitch, slow it down even more, and it's going to be very masculine and allow those pauses to pull her in even more, right? Think Al Green, Barry White.
It reminds me of those like McDonald's commercials with like Barry White, like quarter pounder with cheese, like really low. Yeah, and I'm like, why am I getting turned on by a quarter pounder with cheese? Can't even stomach that thing. So essentially, as you go down the interaction map from attraction through rapport and into seduction, and guys, if you haven't heard about the interaction map, you need to check it out. Go to the artofcharmpodcast.com/toolbox. That's where we're going to have an outline of this on a podcast and go into detail. But essentially, as you go through the phases of interaction from attraction, rapport, and into intimacy or seduction, the voices drop in pitch and the resonance goes up. So the bass, right, that associated with masculinity, that goes up. It's going to be quieter and it's going to use more air over the vocal cords to get there. How do we find our seduction voice, though?
So one, we talked about moving our voice lower, right? Low enough that it's actually in our balls, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because we laugh about that. But imagine when you're eating this amazing steak and you just let out that you feel it reverberate through your body. That's what we're going for. We're going for slightly drawn out, a little bit breathy, slowly articulating what we want, and in a commanding way, right?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely don't want to do this in a questioning way. I can't really imagine it, but it sounds super creepy.
You want me to do what with what?
Yeah, exactly. Now remember, you can use your voice and your body language in combination to control the focus of an interaction. So if you're in a high-energy environment, like a party or a club environment, and you can do this during the day as well, but an extreme example would be party or club environment, you can use this to control a group, or maybe even more importantly, in a panic type situation where everybody's chaotic and no one knows what to do, if you stay calm and you use calm vocal tonality, people will follow your lead because of that confidence. So this could save your life or the lives of others. But in a more practical sense for what we're talking about, in a bar or a club, you can control the focus of the interaction. So if somebody comes into your group, people that you're talking to, women that you're talking to, will look to you for cues on how to behave. So if someone's trying to rudely cut in, for example, you can raise your volume, but you stay calm and don't engage that other person. The girl you're talking to is going to follow your lead. Even if she feels like, it's kind of rude, there's this pull from this other person, you can sort of outframe that or sort of plow through that.
Right, by slightly increasing your volume, not your cadence, and not trying to overpower him. We're just trying to continue to draw attention away from him and towards us.
Exactly. So you're only going to want to use these if a guy's trying to be annoying and loud, not if he's being cool. Otherwise, you're just going to come across like a dick. And also, you should always want cool people to talk to you. But if somebody's trying to, plow over you because they're trying to, hey, I brought that girl here, I'm jealous now, you can outframe that. And, primarily these techniques are useful in rapport and seduction in terms of controlling the conversation with your voice and body language. But you can control an entire group like this. And so if somebody becomes emotionally reactive, if he gets upset that you're still talking to her, he's going to look like a tool because you're still staying calm, which is so key. But how do we practice this stuff? I mean, we've given a lot of great tips. When can guys start putting this into action? I mean, are we just going to be like Stuart Smalley in the mirror in the morning or what?
Well, first and foremost, as I said, record your voice, right? That's really where Jordan and I learned the most about our voice and how to control things, and also how much we were using filler words to fill those empty pauses in our speech.
To fill those pauses?
Exactly. Hopefully Jordan's cutting all of those out.
Yep.
But it is really important to realize that a lot of times we can convey a lack of security in situations where we should be confident and secure. And it could be keeping you back from getting that date and maybe even a raise. So that's number one. Record yourself conversationally with a friend and try to vary the topic through the conversation. Maybe a topic you're confident about, maybe something you're learning about. And you'll see very quickly how your voice itself changes, right? A lot of times the voice that we hear in our head obviously is not the voice that's projected to the world. So it is important to dial it back and realize that, oh, if I